Baseball is an amazing sport, and part of the fun of being a fan is being able to use statistics to uncover pretty much anything in the game. Like, have you ever wondered how good a catcher is at preventing passed balls or wild pitches? Well, there's even a stat for that, and Alejandro Kirk actually leads all catchers with .18 blocks above average per game. Then there are also the unfortunate stats like the ones us Jays fans have heard the entire season, hitting with runners in scoring position, which they find themselves in 22nd for average, 26th for OBP, 28th for slugging, and 28th for OPS, with the two teams below them being the 38-win Royals and 33-win Athletics. But enough of that. The point I'm making is that stats allow you to utilize a player as best as you can. So I thought it would be interesting to try and use stats to create the best possible lineup order going forward. One that could actually score runs, because as we know, the Jays get on base. It's cashing them in that's the problem. And make sure you stick around for the whole 1 through 9, because we're going to be shaking things up. In the leadoff spot, I would like Springer to return. I know he's had some success batting in the 2 and 4 spots recently, but ultimately hitting first is where he belongs, and it's where he has the ability to set the tone for the rest of the lineup. And if there's one thing the 0 for 35 stretch taught George, is to stop guessing at the plate, because it seemed like he would go up there with no plan at all and try to do too much. But ever since he broke out of that slump, we're witnessing the George Springer we signed a few years ago. He's not chasing as much, and he's finally starting to hit for more power with 5 extra base hits in his last 13 games. At the 2 spot, I want to see Brandon Belt. Hear me out, this man is not a run producer. When he's hitting in the 3 spot, which is where he spent the most time this season, he's a total of 10 RBIs in 25 games. Not the greatest. And all of this stems from him not being able to hit with runners in scoring position. So my thinking is, why not put him up to the 2 spot to utilize that team best 370 OBP? Batting third is Vlad. Ever since he broke out hitting third in 2021, it solidified this spot as his best position to bat in. And while he has never been able to return anywhere close to that form, he's not having a terrible season in terms of producing runs with 72 RBIs in 116 games. And he's actually one of the best in terms of hitting with runners in scoring position on the team. That's why I'd like to see Belt in front of him, because he's the guy who gets on base the most. In the 4 spot, Bo Bichette. I know it's a little up in the air about when he returns, but he's starting to take some swings and run a little, so it could be in the next few weeks. And when he does come back, I want to see him in the cleanup spot. It's where he was in 2021 when he had our best offensive season, and I know that had to do with a guy named Marcus Semien, but nonetheless, Bo's stats batting 4th that year were incredible with 36 RBIs in 51 games. He's also the man with the highest average, OBP, slugging, and OPS with runners in scoring position on the team. That's why I think the change should be made here for Bo to drop to 4th, because it would allow him to bat with runners on more frequently. Batting 5th is Matt Chapman. He's a very tricky guy to rate because his overall numbers are very solid, but as we know, that's heavily inflated by a monstrous April, and he had a very poor following 2 months. But he is rebounding quite nicely. In his last 32 games, he's an OPS around 800 and has continued to tally on his league lead in doubles with 9 during this span. Now for the guy you were probably wondering about, Whit Merrifield. This man came out clutch in the past couple of months when the offense had been at its lowest, and he even filled in nicely for Springer batting leadoff. But ultimately, this is where I want him to be batting, and it's because he's a huge run producer, and he did this while batting 6th. In the 6th spot, he has knocked in 26 RBIs in 38 games. That's on pace for 110 RBIs in a 162 game span. Merrifield is easily the Jays' 2nd best batter when it comes to hitting with runners in scoring position, and this is a spot where the Jays find themselves having men on a lot. That's why I think it could be a good idea to move him back down. Moving on, in the 7th spot, I want Kevin Kiermaier. When KK signed, it was obvious he'd start in the 9th spot as this offense had such high expectations. But the offense has been far from expected, and Kiermaier is having a very solid offensive season, hitting around 270 and boasts elite speed. It's time to forget him hitting in the 9th spot and push him up a few places to bat 7th in front of Danny Jansen. Having Jano bat 8th makes a lot of sense to me. He has already posted great numbers in that position this season, and also having Merrifield and Kiermaier, who both have higher averages hit in front of him, means that Jano could hit with runners on more often, and he has been one of the best on the team when batting with runners on base. And lastly, Dalton Varsho. Heading into the season, I had high hopes for him. I even made a video on why he's a dark horse candidate to win a Silver Slugger award. Yeah, maybe I was just getting a little bit too excited for the new guy. But anyways, I don't think anybody could have expected him to be this bad offensively. He can't hit up and in fastballs, and is without a question the worst offensive everyday player we have. and that's why it's a no-brainer for him to be batting last. And you know what? He's a great guy to have on base for the front three because he boasts elite speed and can score from first from just an extra base hit. Those are the changes that I would try out, and before you run to the comments and say this would never work or this is why you're not the manager, I understand it's a pretty big shakeup from what they like to run, but in a time where the Jays offense is so lackluster, why not try it? Of course, this depends on health, and we need Bo and Kiermaier back to field this 1 through 9. And when they do ultimately get healthy, I think this is the lineup that could finally do some damage for the Blue Jays. Now, this is the most opinionated video I've made so far, so I'd love to hear your opinions in the comments, and also let me know what your ideal 1 through 9 is, as well as a little reasoning behind it. Thank you for making it all the way to the end of the video. I greatly appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one.